Hey everybody, it's Steve. Time for some more Dark Valley. I do want to say a couple of things. I meant end of last week to do another video, right? I got into a really good rhythm where I did like 2 videos a week towards the end of the week. That's about when I could get time together to do it up, record some gaming, do it, and then get it up on YouTube. But of course, on Friday, which is when I would have wanted to do another video, things are too busy and too hectic, and I couldn't get to it. So I'm going to try to make up for that by doing something today, which is a Monday. I almost didn't even do anything today because I'm just trying to get through some work stuff and get ready for the holidays, and I almost didn't have time to just do this, but I'm committed to it. What that may mean is because I'm both like I'm tired right now, and I'm needing to kind of get through this quickly. I might be a little off in this video. It's entirely possible. Maybe I'm being pessimistic and things will be fine, but I'm going to try to get this turn in for you guys so you have something to make up for Friday. Me missing Friday's usual video that I would try to do. And we're looking at turn 22, so technically speaking, at the end of this video, we will be halfway through the game. Which is funny to me, because I'm like, man, I've been playing this game forever. I'm like, oh, I'm like halfway. I'm halfway through it. I'm halfway. Because there's 42 turns. This is the end of turn 22, which means, we'll get through turn 22. We'll be halfway through. We've got 22 turns left to go. But not all turns are made equal, I will say. All the Operation Barbarossa stuff, there was so much movement happening, so many critical decisions. I'm not sure we're going to have turns of equal caliber for a while. Maybe we get towards next year in terms of the game year. So, 1944 might be more like that, and things will have to kind of slow down and be a little more careful. Take longer, maybe. I don't know. The last video was really short because there wasn't a lot of activity, but this turn will ratchet back up the activity to be more active. Gosh. Okay, so turn 22. Turn 22 is a clear weather turn, which means both sides are going to have a little bit more operational capability, and I believe the chit recipe for the turn is reflective of that. A lot more activity. If I look at the turn track, it is actually Axis initiative, so they are going to be a little advantaged here. And a couple of things. So if I were to start looking at the reinforcements and replacements, kind of interesting here. Let me grab this turn's set of stuff. I think you'll appreciate what we're going to look at here. Okay, so in terms of reinforcements for the turn, I'm going to move the camera. Sorry if that makes you feel unwell. So the Axis is going to get a measly division there. Not much, nothing to get too excited about. The Soviets are going to get a tank corps, and then they're going to get some guard conversions. And you're going to see we're going to get another infantry army. We're going to get a tank army, which are always good to get. And we're going to get a mech corps upgrade, which I might have trouble finding somewhere on the board an actual place to upgrade that, but I assume I've got one somewhere. And then, the Soviets are going to get a crap ton of replacements as usual, but amazingly, the Axis, for the first turn in like a while, the Axis are going to get some replacements. I'm going to read them out just so you know what we're going to get, and it'll be interesting to see, how much of that we can actually make use of. So we, in order, do the following, is what the rulebook says. Replace one Romanian and one Hungarian replaceable unit. And as it stands, I have none of those. Replace one. Replace one unit? It's not steps. But it sounds like I can get a step. So if I'm going to choose to interpret that to mean I can flip, I can replace one step of a Romanian and a Hungarian unit. That's yes, I think that's what that is meant to mean. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay, so that's good. We can make use of that. I've got a reduced Romanian unit and a reduced Hungarian unit. They're going to get a flip. That's cool. Then we're going to replace half, round down, of all German infantry steps. Replace half of all German infantry steps. So I'm going to guess that means I've got to go through and I've got to find all my reduced infantry, count how many reduced infantry I have, which will then tell me that's how many steps that are out there that could be replaced. Then I'm going to count everything in the dead pile, and whatever that number numerically is, I'm going to cut that in half, and then I'm going to give that many replacements back on the board. Is what that sounds like to me. Is what it's. I think of how I'm looking at it. That's what it replace half, round down, of all German infantry steps. That's how I'm reading that. And if someone's listening to this and can correct me on my understanding, please do so. Then we're going to replace all eliminated but replaceable German panzer units at reduced strength. So that doesn't mean we get to fill back up reduced units. We're simply going to put eliminated units back on the board. And to be honest, if I look at what's in the dead pile, there's 2 units, I'm sorry. 2 units that will get to come back. Which isn't much. Okay. And then finally replace all Panzer Grenadier units. Okay, and I think I actually might have do I not have any dead? Oh, I have no? I don't have any. I don't have any in the dead pile to replace. So, for the replacements we get, really it seems like the most valuable set of replacements will be the infantry replacements, and I'll have to figure out how many that is. I really don't know if that's, hopefully it won't take me long to figure that out. It should be easy because I can just go down the front line and count what's reduced and just sort of keep count of that and keep track of that. Though I will say that's not, I don't know if that's the easiest way from a design standpoint for the player. Maybe it would have been better to say, hey, you get, 15, 20 replacement points? I don't know. But maybe that's like as much as the Axis is willing to, like Germany's willing to replace over here because they've got to do stuff over in Italy and Western Europe. So I guess that makes sense. I don't know. But now I've got to go do the chore of going down the line and counting. Whatever, that's fine. So once I do that, I'll take care of the airbase phase and the strategic movement stuff. I really don't think there's going to be much of that, really, for either side. Other than the Soviets will probably be railing some guys to the front. That's kind of par for course for what they want to do. So I'm going to take us off camera. I'm going to do all this replacement and reinforcements, replacements, etc. Fun, and get it all on the map, and then we'll do the strategic movement, and everything will be in place for the action phase. Again, I'm trying to move quickly through this because I only have so much time, and I'm dragging, guys. I gotta relax. Holidays. Relax, Steve. Okay. We will be back in just a second. Okay, so I lied. I had to put a cut in here because I needed to comment on something. So I had decided to just quickly do the Soviet conversion reinforcements before doing the Axis replacements, just because it's easier for me to do that right now. It's not the turn order, but for me it's just easier to do it in this instance. And I realized, I went through all the guys on the board, and I could not make a replacement of a pre-existing non-guard mechanized corps with the guard mechanized corps that I got as reinforcements for the conversion. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make that conversion. I did not have a unit on the board to turn into the guard mechanized corps. So I guess I don't get it, but I put it on the turn track for next turn. I assume that's how we're supposed to do it. And I was trying to figure out, why did that happen? Why don't I have a regular mechanized corps on the board? And it's because of how I've done my guard tank army conversions previously, where I was picking certain types of units off the board, and I chose to get rid of some of those normal corps, mechanized corps. And now I don't have a regular one to turn into a guard, so I don't get it right now, I guess. But then I also had that guard tank army to put on the map, and I did get rid of 2 regular tank corps and or armor corps, whatever you want to call it, as well as a guard mechanized corps that was already on the map. So I did get to place that new tank army. I put it in Stalingrad, so we can kind of come over and start beating up on the Axis line there. So yeah, just kind of some weirdness, and again, I know that is because how I chose to do my conversions before, because you have a little bit of wiggle room in how you do those conversions. So you could either chalk it up to bad planning, but I suspect it's going to even out because I'm going to get some regular mechanized corps and some of the reinforcement piles to come, I think, maybe. And when that unit comes on, I can just immediately replace it with the guard that is being held back. It all will be gravy at the end of the day, I think. We'll see. So that's all done. So I still have to do all the replacements. So I'm going to figure out the Axis replacements. I'm going to do the Soviet replacements. I'm going to do the strategic movement. And when we come back, hopefully without me coming across some other weird happenstance, we will talk to the action segment. Okay, so all that is on the board. I ended up with 10 infantry replacements, I think, if I counted right. I think there may be some things I might have confused there in my counting, but 10 infantry steps replaced for the Axis is not too bad. And it meant that, a couple of reduced corps got beefed up, and then we got some divisions back on the map that will get onto the line and help provide support. So for the Axis, that was all well and swell. And then, the 2 Panzer units came in at reduced, so hey, happy to have them, guys. They don't have Zocs, so that can be a bit of a problem, but we did okay there. For the Soviets, a really interesting thing kind of happened. This is really, I guess, the net effect of all these replacements that have been going on. I ended up with a decently large surplus of points again that I couldn't spend. So I built everything out of the eliminated pool that I could. And then I ended up putting putting them on the map, no big deal there. And I replaced what I could, but for the Soviets, they can't replace if they're adjacent to an Axis unit, and so there are some armies on the board that just due to bad luck and things happening, I could not actually replace, and now it would have been nice to be able to do that, but I don't think it's a huge deal that I couldn't. I still have that surplus of wasted replacement points, but it's kind of interesting. So both sides, sure, the Axis still has some stuff on the dead pile, but both are kind of topped off to a certain degree going in now to the summer of 43. So, it's time to start cracking some skulls, I guess. Strategic movement was very minimal. The Axis could do, I think it was like 4 steps, but the reality was there's nothing to move. Just about everything is where I kind of want them to be, with the only exception maybe saying maybe I should start pulling back, but things are going okay so far, so we won't do that yet. And even if I did, I could only pull back a few units, so what's the point? The Soviets used theirs just to move some units out of the replacement cities closer to where I intend them to be operationally, so pretty straightforward there. And now we can get right into the Action Cup recipe for the turn. So this is May 1943, and what do we have for May 1943? Well, here we go. So we have logistics as usual. The Axis have move or combats, so they get some flexibility back this turn, so you can see move or combat. And we get to pick one Panzer HQ. I've selected the 2nd Panzer. That is the HQ that is near Orel. Seeing that the Soviets are putting a large number of their guard armies in that sector, I don't think it'll hurt to have a little bit of flexibility there, that if they really do try to keep pushing their way through to Orel, or to push us back to Orel, because the Axis managed to gain some ground back there, we can try to fast react and deal with that, I guess, is the way to look at it. So that's what we went with. For the Soviets, they get their Stavka marker as usual, and what I actually made sure to do is I have 3 regular, not guard, just regular, 3 regular armor corps for the Soviets, tank corps, whatever you want to call them, that are in the Stavka Reserve. I think they're good there because they're high movement factor units, so I can plop them where they need to be and then move them quickly to where they've got to go, as long as they're near the Stavka HQ. So it works. They're there. I don't think them being like putting them on the front line right this second is going to be a big game changer. But having them be able to kind of go somewhere if things get funky will be valuable. Then the Soviets just get their regular move, and then we have the combat Stavka Zhukov, so both. And to speak to something, Ted had reminded me that you don't want the HQs overlapping, right? You want them to kind of have distinct spheres of activation, which is true. And I guess what I've meant to say as I position my HQs is like, well, I want them to be near one another to where those zones of activation are adjacent to one another, so that it's not I'm activating a whole bunch of units way over here and a bunch of units way over here. I'm activating a bunch of units in a somewhat localized area so that I can do as much damage in that concentrated area as possible when the activation occurs. Now, of course, not a whole lot of that has really mattered due to the die rolls and not a lot of stuff going on, but that's been the intention. So the Axis has initiative, and what are we going to pick? What are we going to do? Well, what really matters is what we want to do with this situation here. And I'm sorry if I move so quick, it might give you a headache here with the camera. I did my fun little, like, oh, look, we made a hole and we advanced a little bit with this weak unit. I could decide to do something with that. Or I could pull back. I was thinking, I'm going to leave this like so, and then when I come back to the game, I can decide, did I really F that up, and fix it as part of movement, as I just rearrange my guys a little bit. Because it's not going to be a wasted move. If the Axis does move first, they're going to shuffle units along the line to try to just make sure there aren't any obvious weak points in the line that could be easily smashable. And I can see even right now a few spots where I'm like, ugh, that's not so good. That's gonna take a hit soon. So at the very least, I do want to be shuffling some guys around first thing because I want to get them in a good position. Technically, I could still try to believe that the Axis has some offensive momentum here, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And we're going to be coming up very soon on the same time frame that Operation Citadel happened historically in the Battle of Kursk. Looking at map position, the Axis is... some parts of the line are very close to where the line is for that scenario, except for in the south where I'm still many hexes in front of Kursk. What offensive type stuff are we even thinking we're going to do here, right? Even this little breakthrough, this tiny breakthrough I made, I mean, there's nowhere to go, right? I'd have to crack a hole somewhere else to create an encirclement to really be valuable, and I don't know where I'm going to do that. I mean, it's conceivable, but I just don't know that it's going to be of much value. So even now, where the Axis still has the potential to have initiative in the summer months here, and their last sort of like decent summer where they have initiative, I don't think there's much that the Axis can really do. I've positioned myself in such a way that I am just trying to hold on, right? So I could move to shorten the line, that might be valuable, or move and just sort of tighten up and hope for the best. It's kind of hard to say. I don't think doing combat first would necessarily do us much good. I mean, I'll put it this way. It could, and then if we moved afterward, that could create those encirclements, but I just don't know that I have the capability to do it. I'm looking at my replacement schedule. Next turn, we're going to get some Panzer Division replacements as the Axis. And then not much else, honestly. There's some emergency replacements we could end up using, but We've refrained from doing that. It won't happen until we're back in Germany, probably. So, yeah, here it really is like, okay, what do you try to do? Can you attack somewhere? Is it worthwhile to do it? If I look at a couple of places, say 7, 9, 14 to 5, that's not good odds. That's not good odds. I mean, I can't even attack this way and try to meet up with this unit. The most I can really do here is, again, to like throw out a couple of units to be kind of a pain in the butt to deal with. Get the line set up a little more coherently for my own sake, and then see what happens. I could see maybe some attacks that happen over here, and of course you're going to get the glare, so you're not going to be able to tell. You can see I've got a little bit of an opening right here that I could try to make something happen. I can use some infiltration movement maybe. Well, I'm not really well positioned to do that either. I could try to attack. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there's a whole lot more I could do here. 13 to 5, that's not going to get me anywhere. Yeah, see, you know what's happening is the factors on both sides are such that it's really hard to make any sort of attacks that makes sense, right? The Axis should not waste manpower on attacks that aren't going to do much for them. The Soviets can get away with that a little bit better. It's just they can only attack decently well in certain areas with the HQs. But they've got these big, gigantic guard armies that have so many combat factors that the equation just works out for them well here. Like, mathematically, there's nothing more the Axis can do to attack, except for in a couple of cases where it's worth, chipping off some attack factors from the opponent. And that's about it. I mean, I really don't think attacking is going to do much for the Axis. This might be like, man, maybe these last turns of the game are going to go by really quickly, because whenever it's Axis combat, we're going to go, yeah, and we're just going to say no combat. We're good, thanks. Thank you, Soviets. We're going to pull back. And that's all they do. And then it's the Soviets just trying to chase the Axis all the way home. And we'll see how that goes. I could still see this game being an Axis victory, because if the Axis can just hold on, can play conservatively from here on out for 22 turns, and keep the Soviets at bay, or at least orderly retreat, they can outlast the clock, is what could happen here. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say Axis is going to do movement. They're gonna try to get their line in better shape, and then we're going to take a look at the Cup. Now Stavka again, I may not use Stavka in the turn, and may simply say, these guys are going to stay back in the reserve, and we waste the counter this turn. But at the very least, we'll see a Axis combat after the move, 2nd Panzer activation, Soviet movement, and the concentrated Stavka-Zhukov combat. So we'll see some stuff happen this turn. So I'll do a cut here. This was a long cut. I got like 12 minutes here where I'm just rambling about the game situation. We'll put a cut here. We come back. I will have completed the Axis move, and we'll go to the Cup. Okay, so Axis movement is complete, and I did what I said I would do, which is shuffle some units around a little bit. I did pull back my sneaky little advance. It just wasn't worth it. Whatever, it's fine. I put a little row of just 1-4 units right here in front of the river of Rostov, just to be annoying, because here's the thing. I mean, they're speed bumps, right? They're speed bumps. I was thinking about this a while ago when the Soviets were on the defensive, right? So why don't I just throw these 1-4 units out there? You have to attack when you advance, right? Well, the problem was the Soviets didn't have them in a localized enough fashion, in enough quantity, that I could do that, because the Axis could simply, kill one and then surround the rest very easily, or at least competently enough that it wasn't worth trying. But here the Axis at least have enough local power and can kind of leverage the terrain to, put some sacrificial divisions out there. With the combat Zhukov and Stavka marker the way they are right now, the Soviets can't even really. I mean, they can try to attack them, but they have a -2. So even if they're rolling, hey, 6-1, 5-1, you get the -2. It's no effect. They're just pinging against these little guys, and if I lose little guys, no big deal. So that's the experiment down here. We'll see how well that works. The rest of the guys are behind the river. They're in the city. They're relatively in good order here, and everything else along this line is what it is. You can kind of see. This is a little bit of a push, a salient. I could maybe pull these guys back a little bit and shorten the line there. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Because again, I mean, the combat Zhukov marker and Stavka marker, I mean, those HQs are up here. There's not as much to worry about. If I look at the schedule for chits, it's probably worth looking at. Let's see. Okay. So, this is probably worth talking about because it kind of matters. If you look at the chit schedule, Combat Stavka Zhukov is the primary combat chit for the Soviets through pretty much the rest of 43 and for the first half or so of 44, because even Deep Battle is still reliant on the HQ. But, very importantly, if you see June 1944 through the rest of the game, the Soviets get move combat chits, and that combat chit means that everybody can attack, and they can all attack to the same quality, not reliant on the HQs. And we'll say that the officer organizational structure of the Soviet Army has been restored enough to a point that all is well in the world and they can attack broadly across the front. When that happens, we'll probably see a pretty crazy shift, right? Because right now, the Soviets are only attacking where the HQs are, really. That's the only place they can regularly do it. So until the move combat chits come in, you get true combat phases. The Soviets can only do so much. And I think that's going to be the real big game changer for the Soviets. Is right now, it's like, hey, we could beat on these guys a little bit. We could punch them. We could hit them. But it will only matter when everybody can attack. And we can push the whole way along the line, hitting the Axis without that -2 modifier. Which might make the game seem a little guided here because the Soviets really can only make so much progress. But hey, it's the design of the game. So far, so good, right? Okay, so yes, the Axis move is over, and now we will go to the chit cup. Let me get these chits in the cup. I did not do that. And let's see what we get. And we get... Okay, well, here we go. It is the Combat Stavka Zhukov. Now, where are these guys positioned right now? Let's see, where did I... Stavka is here. Zhukov is here. Yeah, there's a little bit of overlap. That's on me. It's not perfect. We, get over here. There's a little bit of overlap, because if we go, 3 hexes away from Zhukov right there, it kind of crosses over a little bit into the Stavka 6 hex range, but I expected to get a little bit farther maybe with Zhukov than I did. We'll chalk it up to a mistake on the Soviet command. So there you go. So again, the combats -2 everywhere outside of that command range. So I'm going to take myself off camera here. I'm going to go down the line and just see if there are any combats that make sense to try with the -2. I suspect there won't be, but it's always good to check. And then right in this critical area around here, sort of the center of the line where a lot of activity is happening, where a lot of forces are going, we will likely see some combats. Really what I should consider doing is getting an HQ down here maybe, because what maybe I can be doing is, I've got a lot of force here, I'm starting to get a lot of force right here, smash, smash, and just wipe this out somehow over time. That that would be valuable. And then similarly, try to come then down through here and cut these guys off. I mean, you know, hey, we're just spitballing here. So, all right, we'll be back after all the Soviet combat stuff. Okay, so combats down here, interestingly enough, our Soviet artillery actually plinged one of those speed bumps right out of the way, and then we did some attacks over here. We caused a retreat and a BL-1 over yonder. So, yeah, the speed bump didn't last very long, G-Shucks. And that was, you know, yeah, okay, I'm rolling -1 there, but they were rolling on the basically 5-1 or 6-1 column on the Soviet combat chart, even with a -2. You were getting DRs or BL-1s. And so, yeah, there you go. So much for the speed bump idea. It didn't take long to smash right through that. So experiment, I guess, figured out, right? If you try to do this as the Soviets early on, it probably wouldn't work very well. You would maybe get some retreats, and that might be okay. But yeah, you're not doing too much there as a speed bump. I think you'd rather, as the Soviets, have a speed bump, period, than nothing. But obviously, you know, the game's totally different that early on. So yeah, the Soviets are creeping up on the river. Over here, we took a couple of shots, but they came up as no effect due to that -2. The really interesting stuff happened over here. Actually didn't get very far in very many places, but so there was some BL-1s over here. Not much to look at there, but at least we hit them a little bit. And I just realized I might have put a unit in the wrong place. I'll have to fix that in a minute. Over here. I did force a retreat, and so we got one of our guard armies kind of poking its head through the Axis line there, which is going to be a little bit of a problem for the Axis to deal with here, because we didn't have Soviet movement. We couldn't quite get some of these guys back here up to the front line, but we will be looking to do that. Over here, a BL-1, which hurt one of our Soviet armies, but that's really no big deal, because as we know, the Soviet armies are going to just fix themselves right back up again without too much pain and suffering. So that was it. I'm going to pull the next chit. That's really the only combat for the Soviets. So yeah, okay, you know, we got a hex. We're starting to force another wedge in the right area again with our big, strong guard army units. Go into the cup. We're going to pull, and we get, well, there we go, Soviet movement. And once this movement is over, all Soviet activity will be over, except for if we decide to throw Stavka in somewhere. So I'm going to take us off camera. I'm going to do the Soviet movement. We'll see where we're at. It might be worth doing Stavka if there's something that really makes obvious sense, but I'm not sure there will be something so obvious. We'll be right back. Okay, so movement is complete. It didn't take very long. I got some guys moved up over here. I can't quite cycle these guys out. I should have railed some dudes up here to make that easier, but I think they're safe. Pulled some injured guys back, moved some guys forward. The fact that that stack right at the tip of my finger doesn't have a Zoc meant that I could shuffle some units and move them up over into here to support our advancement, so that's very good for the Soviets. And we sort of plugged that gap a little bit, didn't have quite enough movement to get everywhere where we needed to, and then just everywhere along the line we're sort of moving up and forward here. And these poor guys back here that have just been, they were never allotted trains, and they've been marching from Grozny slowly via road to get up over here to be useful somewhere. So there you go. So movement is complete. So now it's all the Axis' moves from here on out. Again, not that they have a lot of options. I don't think I'm going to do Stavka yet, just because there's nowhere obvious to put them yet. But if somehow the Axis can pull something goofy off, then we'll see what can be done with those tank corps. We're going to go to the cup and see what we get. And we get logistics. Well, I can tell you right now, everybody is in supply. So that's easy. Boom, that's done. So now we just have Axis move or combat, which needs to be combat, and we're going to have then, what do we get? Okay, we got Axis combat. Okay, so now here's the thing. Now that the situation's evolved a little bit, we need to decide, is it worth attacking anywhere along the line to hurt the Soviets? To be honest, I'm not sure there's going to be anywhere along the line that's incredibly useful or valuable to do it. I just don't see that happening. We're going to get our Panzer activation, which we're going to use to sort of try to seal this up over here. But I think there's enough combat factors there that there's no use even trying to attack. I just do not see a reason to try. It would be poor die rolling no matter what, and I don't think that the Axis can afford the losses, even if it's to injure a guard army. I don't think it's a valuable exchange. And I can kind of see where, like, just the Axis will have to retreat eventually, because if I can never hurt that stack of, like, 214 combat strength units together, so 28 with no other units stacked with it, just 2 armies, is 28 combat factors, I can't realistically try to hurt that thing frequently. It's just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's going to cause that need to pull back. And if I do it too late, it'll be a huge problem. I mean, there's a lot of landmass to work here, but that's also a lot of space to pull back on. And it could very well be like I'm so confident in the Axis defense that I screw up, and it's too late to pull them back, and I just lose half the German army. I could see that happening, for real, I could. I got to figure out when's the right time to say, okay, screw it, have Ukraine back, and pull everybody back. I'm not sure we're there yet, but I can see where some situations will just become untenable, and I'll need to pull back. Okay, so combat, Axis combats. I'm going to take myself off camera. I'm going to check the combats down the line, see what's what, and then we'll come back. You can see these mid-game turns kind of go somewhat swiftly because, hey, the line's right here. This is all you got. You're going to look down this line. Is there stuff I can do? Is there stuff I can't do? What's worth doing? What's worth trying? It's a lot more condensed. Where again, with Operation Barbarossa, I was like, man, I'm running all over the place. I've got guys up over here, down here, all kinds of craziness. Here it is now just, okay, where are those pokes and prods going to be? You know, it's a different game experience. Very distinct from the Operation Barbarossa scenario, but interesting in its own way as we try to figure out what to do and where's the right place to apply that pressure. Anywho, we're gonna do that. We'll come back and well, I'm gonna I'll pull the chit out, right? I'm gonna set this guy over here, and we'll just figure out if Stavka is gonna come into play after combat. We'll be back. Okay, so very quickly, the only attack that I ended up launching was here. I actually forced a DR star, which is really cool because I rolled a 6 and had like 2-1 or 3-1 odds with air support, and yeah, I forced some guys back, but I'm not going to advance to take the hex. And I'm just going to enjoy the spoils of forcing that minor retreat here, because it's going to take time for the Soviets. They're going to have to move that guy back into position. They're going to have to get back in line. He's going to be able to replenish himself because he got forced far back, but that's fine. we're fine with that. That works. Now, here's the thing. Is anything worth putting our tanks into play right now from the Stavka reserve? I don't think so. I really don't see a reason to, and I don't think they could do much damage if they went in anywhere, because the stacking is already clogged up. I don't think there's much to do. So I'm going to let the Stavka be wasted and just say that we're going to keep those tanks in reserve. They're going to stay in the reserve going into the next turn, and that's about it. And we're going to do our second Panzer activation, which is really going to be over here. And it's really going to be about what do we do to fill up the line, the 2 hexes, by the tank guard army. We got to put something there. We can't not put something there. And I don't want to give up Orel either, so we're going to activate some units, and we're going to try to shuffle some guys over there to protect the line. So I don't think it's going to end up with any combat. We're just going to do movement and no combat afterwards, because we could only do combat with mechanized units anyway, and I don't see that being valuable. So this is like a little mini move for the Axis, and then we'll probably be calling that the end of the turn. So let me do a cut here, and we'll come back for some quick final thoughts if that's what I'm going to decide to just do. Okay, there you go. That's the movement. I just barely shifted a few guys, and they're in the way. Now the problem will be there may be an attack somewhere around here, and it's going to force them back, and more of these guys are going to start to ooze their way through. But hopefully that will hold, at least for the time being, and we'll have to keep figuring things out. I don't know. at some point we do have to start pulling back. That will have to happen. It doesn't have to does it have to happen now, right? Or this summer? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, the longer we hold on to stuff, if we can hold it legitimately, will mean more hexes the Soviets have to take later, which is just going to put the time pressure on them even more. So we could even fall back to like a Leningrad to Odessa line or something, just straight down the center of the map, and maybe that would be better, right? We're like here, pull back all the way down here, and we'd be giving up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 victory cities. So that would put us at 27. But I think that is well within our automatic victory concern here. Let me just do a quick double check of that. Oh yeah, we'd be fine. We'd be fine. So yeah, at some point I could start pulling back to shorten that line and kind of get things reorganized, but I don't think I need to do that quite yet. Not yet. But we'll see. Yeah, we're still sitting at 35 victory points. That's where we've stayed now for a while. It makes me wonder, is it worth putting in the rules like, hey, if you're the Axis and you hold this many victory points this late in the war, maybe you win an automatic victory that way. I don't know. But I think that makes it such an Axis-sided game that, like, why even play two-player with a Soviet player? The Soviets need that opportunity to play their game and be offensive in their way. And a decent opportunity to make up for a slow start, maybe, I guess, is the way to look at it. Anyway, that's the board position. Not much has changed, which might be a little boring, I guess, from a spectator perspective. For me, I can say I'm seeing the situation evolve. We've got some guard armies up here. That could start to put things, in a stressful position. We never quite saw the true destruction of Army Group Center yet, but that could still happen. We're getting pressure over here, and it won't be long before we see some real action start to occur. Yeah, well, it's an evolving situation. So, okay, that'll do it for this video. We will look at turns 23 and 24, hopefully later this week. I don't know with the holiday if I'll have time really to game. I'll be spending time with family probably, but at least the next video will be turn 23. I'll have some interesting things to discuss there because of its relationship with Operation Citadel. And it'll be an interesting discussion for sure as we talk about the fortified zone marker. Spoilers, we'll talk about that. And otherwise, we'll keep the train rolling. So thank you for watching. If you're sticking with me the whole way through, I know there's got to be, I don't know, half a dozen of you guys at least, or a few dozen, I don't know. Some folks are out there have been watching every episode, and I appreciate that. You're with me through the journey here. And I hope this is entertaining and fun for you. I know for some folks you're really enjoying it, and I'm glad that helps me, this helps me acknowledge it's worth my time. I'm having fun playing it, but it's even extra added value to me knowing that you guys are enjoying it too. So, yeah, if you liked the video, hit like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you in turn 23, what would be the historical Operation Citadel. Until next time, guys, take care and keep on gaming.